I think we've got a quorum and it's about that time, so we'll get started. This is part three of our PM Tension Series that was derived from some study we did with product managers about some of the tensions they face. And today is part three of it will be our part three and our last in that series. And today we're going to talk about why speed without discipline tends to break product teams. So Tom will be leading and I will be supporting. We can quickly introduce myself. I'm on the right. You can see from my picture. I'm a principal consultant and trainer at Productside. Have been for about the last 7 years or so. Prior to that, spent 25 to 30 years or so as a product manager, product director, VP of product, chief product officer, you name it, I've done it. And I've been having a blast here at Productside since. Tom, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to say, you look more like your picture than what I look like in that picture.
You
But
need new pictures,
Tom,
huh?
Tom Evans, and I've been with Productside for almost 16 years, with the opportunity to work with a lot of great people around the world, helping them and their companies transform their practices in product management. So I'm excited to be here and speak on this topic because this is actually up there with jobs to be done. This is again one of my favorite topics to talk about. So,
Excellent. All right. So let me go to the next slide, Tom. So I'm going to start by welcoming you all to this and give you a little bit of introduction into Productside, who is the team that's driving today's webinar. At Productside, we know how hard it can be to deliver really great products that people not only use but truly love. And it could be anything from aligning stakeholders, predicting customer needs, managing endless backlogs. We've seen some or most or all of that. And that's really why we're here, to be your outcome-driven product partner. And we don't just provide solutions, but we tailor them to each company's unique challenges. That enables things like hopefully complete solutions to help you transform everything from strategy to execution. We're there to help you along the way as you make your transformation to being an outcome-driven, product-driven company. And as I noted, we tailor what we do to your needs, to understand your context. We know that each company's challenges are unique, their journey in product managers are unique, and so as a result, some of our solutions. And we have a whole bunch of people like Tom and myself, and probably a bunch of folks that are even better than us, that really act as an extension of your team that works to make sure that you're successful. And we are thrilled to have you all with us today. So let's dive in a little bit and start to help your product team thrive. And I encourage you to ask questions, lots of questions. We want to keep this session as interactive as possible. Within your window, you will see within your Zoom window, you'll see both a chat and a Q&A. You can use either to ask your question. And the first question I'm usually asked is, can I watch this recording later? And can I share it with my other coworkers who probably can get value out of this, but didn't necessarily respond to this invitation? The answer to that is an absolute yes. Everybody that comes to this webinar will get a link to the recording, and we'll probably even put one in here during the session as well. As I mentioned, use the Q&A feature, use the chat feature, keep the energy up, don't hold back. Really, our hope is that this is your time in which we want you to get the most out of the session as we go through it. One other little plug that I want to provide out there is we do have a LinkedIn group that I encourage you all to join, sign up with, take a moment and follow the invitation. There's a QR code in here. And our LinkedIn page is really more than just a place to follow or doing a product site. It's really a community. And when you join that community, you'll get a whole bunch of benefits, things like leadership best practices that hopefully can inspire you in your growth in your role. We set up a bunch of conversations about what product management is, how it fits in, some tips on how you make it more impactful. And it's really an opportunity for you to network with other product management professionals who are probably sharing some of the same goals, some of the same objectives, and yeah, some of the same challenges that you are. So again, Scan the QR code on the screen. You can join instantly or follow the link that we probably put in the chat. We really are happy to hear from you, swap ideas, keep that conversation going on topics from today's session or beyond. So we can all work together to build stronger product management community as a joint opportunity. And without further ado, I will bring Tom on board, who's going to drive us through our key topic today about how not to go too fast and make sure that we get things done effectively. So,
Yeah,
Tom, take it away.
absolutely. So thank you. So this is just an overview of what we're going to be talking about. But first, I want to really talk about the tension that does exist out there, and I'm sure many of you feel it. I know as I've worked through with companies, I've seen them experiencing the same tension and expressing it. Then I'm going to start talking about how we need to be thinking differently, and that's all this uh, thought around going from output to outcomes. Then we'll talk about ways that we can actually accelerate value delivery. So we're going to have a change of focus here. And then you're going to say, well, okay, this all sounds great. What are some things that we can do to start to make that transition? And so that's what we're really going to do, wrap up with is helping you get some ideas and thoughts on how to start making a transition to reduce that tension that exists out there. So let's get into just talking about the tension. And I know as I've worked with companies around the world, I see a lot of companies where their executives have pressure on the product management team to be able to say, you have to deliver a particular feature by this particular time. By the way, we got all this other stuff and you have to deliver that too. And so there's a lot of executive pressure mandating here are the features that have to be delivered. And what we do is there's such the pressure to do that that we have no time to do any discovery work. And so we skip discovery. We move right on into building the output and delivering that output. And I will say, I know that as I've worked with companies that do, this detailed planning that looks out over, several months or 3 months is often very common and say, this is what we're going to deliver in this time, I will always ask them, how much of that did you actually deliver? And they will say, 30, 50% of it maybe. And so, we're already in a conundrum there. But then we deliver it and we find out, well, that's not really what the customers were needing or their expectations. Maybe we made some shortcuts to be able to make a delivery on a feature. We start finger pointing around who's to blame around that. And that just creates more pressure in the organization. And so here we are running on this feature treadmill. We want to do customer discovery type work, but in the end, that completely gets blocked out. And so that's really the tension that is existing there is that pressure between here's what you have to deliver versus knowing are we delivering the right things. So we have a poll here and that we're going to put up here and four options there, but what's your team rewarded for most? Shipping on time, stakeholder satisfaction, adoption or retention outcomes, risk reduction and quality, or the quantity of output, like how many story points or how many features did you deliver, or did you deliver all the features that we asked you to do? And I know you as a person may actually have several of those that are up there on the list, but we're going to ask you to vote just on one of those. So let's
Pick the one
see
that's the
where
most.
we come up there.
Okay. Some folks are chipping in on us. See if we give it
Yeah, let's give
another few
about
seconds.
another 5 seconds here because I think we got a pretty good quorum on place.
Maybe we can share it back out and let people
All
take a
right, go
look.
ahead and shut that down and share the results here. All right, hopefully you are seeing here on your screen the results on that. And I would say, Kenny, no surprise to me, 41% focused on shipping on time.
Yeah, get
There's
get that
another
thing out there
12%.
fast.
Yeah, there's another 12% on quantity of output. So that's over 50% that are focused on, the output on schedule, on time.
Good to see that there are
30%.
some folks, 30% are on adoption and retention outcomes.
Yeah,
That's good
yeah,
to
that's
see,
actually
sir.
pretty good to
Oh
be
yeah.
thinking about the customer need there. And then stakeholder satisfaction is the other one. Nothing around risk reduction or quality. So that's I'm not sure how to
Might be
take
telling.
that, but so
That outcome
anyway,
we're going after, huh?
yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of that may be industry oriented in terms of having that higher focus on risk reduction. Definitely some of the industries that I've worked with are that way. Well, let's talk about, the two ways of thinking in terms of what we deliver. And the way that many of our organizations are focused is around output. And so, what are the features? What are the capabilities? What are the enhancements? And really, maybe even technical debt would fall into this, but what is it that we are actually delivering? What did we create? And what we really want to be focused on is outcomes. So, what impact are we making for the business, or are we, more importantly, are we making for our customers? That's what we really want to see is both a positive impact upon our customers. And if we're making a positive impact on our customers, that's going to lead toward a positive impact on our organization. Now, does this mean output is not important? No, output is important. But output needs to be prioritized in terms of the context of what outcomes are we trying to achieve. And I think what I see often in organizations, and I had a meeting earlier this week where this really stood out to me is we got these big backlogs with hundred of items in them. We run some kind of prioritization and we say, okay, here's our prioritized things that we're going to work on. Or that comes from the sales team to close the deal, or it comes from management to close the deal. And we aren't ever really taking that look and saying, well, what's the outcome that this is achieving? How is this helping our customers? How is this contributing to our overall business? So, why do we focus on output? Well, it's because it's visible and measurable. So I'm not saying outcomes is not visible. Outcome should be measurable, but the outcomes are usually a measurement that we can see further down the road. It's not something that we can see right now in terms of perceived progress in delivering our product. I also think there's a thought around that perception of predictability or certainty that the better we define all of these outputs that we're going to deliver, we have much more control over that and much more certainty. And as I already shared, as I speak with companies that have this detailed planning in place, companies especially that do safe, um, they are rarely delivering much more than 50% of what they committed to or planning. And so now we come into this question of capacity planning. Yes, by identifying output, by scoping the output, we feel like we are moving toward capacity planning. But I also find that often we're trying to push through our capacity much more than what our capacity can actually even handle, or we're trying to push through much more than what they can actually handle. And of course, we always have stakeholders who are requesting specific output. So, with you're working with internal teams, are coming to you with specific requests. If you are working with external customers, you're often going to have your sales or customer support teams or executives coming to you with that specific request. And like I said, this gives an illusion that we're actually moving quickly and that we have control over that. But in the end, are we really delivering the best customer value. And that is something that this is not demonstrating to us. This is something that is not visible to us along as we do that. And so, Kenny, were you going to add in a point there? Or
No, I was just actually I do have one. I was just working with a company and we started to talk about the process. And one of the things they did is they showed me the process they were working on and developing for their product management team, and it started with requests from stakeholders. Individual feature requests from stakeholders. And I was like, that's a bad starting point. Let's start with the
yeah,
outcomes you want to achieve and let that drive the priority. But don't start with those requests that you get on Monday or, that Monday app or whatever. Don't
yeah,
start there.
yeah. So, are there some benefits to the output? Well, at least it creates the perception of clarity. Okay. It does give us a way to measure, some level of momentum. It probably does accelerate some of the decision making that we make. We know that executives are rewarding that progress, and they like to see how much, many lines of codes or how many story points are being delivered because that's clearly measurable to them and a measurement of progress. And at least I say this again is, there clearly is that perception of planning, and the planning is happening. I guess it's really kind of that perception of predictability. But when we focus here primarily on the output, well, what happens? Discovery loses. And I cannot tell you how many classes that I have taught where we have emphasized the importance of doing discovery work. And you have almost everyone in the class saying, but we don't have time to do discovery. Our executive teams don't see the value in discovery because they can see code being written, they can see stories being delivered. And so I don't want to make this just software oriented, but they can see product development being completed and milestones being hit on a project plan. And that's progress to them. But when we're doing discovery, we don't have clear, measurable ways to be able to demonstrate that, or at least they aren't able to see that. Often we skip discovery because our stakeholders really feel like we already know what our customers need. We know our customers. This is exactly what they need. And then, I know that I've been asked this in the past, and I know other product managers are being asked. They're being asked to create roadmaps that look far into the future. And if you're in a software world, they're saying, when are you gonna deliver something here, a year and a half or 2 years from now? If you're in a physical product world, you may be asking for these commitments for, we need to know exactly in 2 years or 3 years when these things are being delivered. And so there's that pressure to commit, even when we are facing a lot of uncertainty in terms of, what needs to truly be developed. So here's the impact that we run into if we focus on the output. What definitely causes us rework, because if we just proceed working on delivering a product or capabilities in the product without any of that validation through discovery, we're not going to have delivered the right thing. Now, there is a chance we can do that, but I often see that that's not the case. And we have to go back and do a rework on that. We end up growing our technical debt because sometimes to deliver and meet a schedule, we take shortcuts and we say, we're going to catch up on that later on. And we're always under pressure to deliver more and more. And so that technical debt can often sit there. We miss opportunities to innovate and to deliver true customer value and differentiation. It ends up causing us to miss changes in the marketplace, because when we've committed ahead of time and we put a rigid plan in place, it makes it harder for anyone in the organization to say, no, this isn't the right direction. We need to change. We need to move in a different direction. And I know in my own experience, as well as the companies I work with, everybody's feeling frustration because executives and other stakeholders are saying, deliver this. It needs to be delivered by this time frame. We're telling them we can't do that. That's gonna we don't have the capacity. We'll do it anyway. Work harder. We end up not meeting those schedules. People become frustrated. There's finger pointing, and it doesn't create the healthy environment that we want to have in terms of a product development practice. And so definitely create some big challenges for us. Kenny, any other examples that you have seen?
Oh, I see it all the time. I was working on a specific project, and there was the deadhead. This was the right thing to do, and we did it. And we even took shortcuts. We didn't listen even to our beta responses where we had a huge bug. And as a result, we wound up shipping a hardware product of all of which the products that we shipped to retail to be sold turned into really good bricks or paperweights because they certainly couldn't do what you were trying to get done with them.
So even though the feedback was there, we had such high certainty, we
Let's do
ignored it,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do we want to focus on outcomes? Well, because while we are, can measure the activity with output, it's really the impact that we want to be able to measure. And one of the things that I really love, and this is one of our colleagues that I heard say this a few years ago, and I really loved it when she worded it this way. But when we're focused on outcomes, that gives us optionality in terms of making decisions on how we're going to deliver on that outcome. Because what we might discover is that the capability or the feature that we thought we needed to deliver that outcome is not the best option. And so by focusing on the outcome versus already committing to that output, we have options available to us. That also gives us optionality in terms of how we implement a specific capability in our product. I know for myself that I have often defined requirements, and I'm going to say what's the word I want to use? I embellish them with everything that I ever thought, I might want to have within that capability. And what I've really discovered is there's probably 20% of it that is truly delivering the right value. And the rest of it is just, it adds some value, but it's a small incremental amount. And so we're ended up investing in a lot of capability in our products that are actually not the key part of what is driving value. So I personally have found that outcomes are more predictable to deliver than output. I don't know about you, Kenny, if that's an experience that you've seen,
Oh
but
yeah.
I can define an outcome and I have optionality in terms of how I deliver on it. That's a much more predictable thing to do than to just deliver on output.
Yeah, we can get random.
Yep. And this quote here I love, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. And that's really one of the things that we want to be thinking about as product managers is how can we deliver the maximum value with as little of work as possible? And I'm not saying take shortcuts and deliver bad value. I'm saying focus on doing a great job of delivering the value that is most important.
Yeah, I like Einstein's quote on this one too, Tom. So we should listen
Yeah,
to
what
Albert
does
Einstein. He says any intelligent fool can make things bigger and more complex, but it takes a
yeah,
touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction.
yeah, to really simplify things, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Yeah, excellent. Well, let's move into our next topic here about accelerating value delivery because that's what we really want to achieve. And part of the underframing part of this is how do we put some level of process in place to help us in terms of accelerating that value delivery? And so we have a poll here, our second poll and our final poll here also. But how is process typically perceived in your organization? Is it perceived as a helpful decision framework, necessary but painful, bureaucratic overhead, or something that we figure out our best way to work around?
Some places I've done that, Tom, I must admit. That was only when it was a bad process, though.
Hmm. Let's see here. We're going to give another 10 seconds or so for you to respond to that. Anybody else got any other thoughts? I worked in an organization it's been a number of years ago, but we went through the ISO 9000 certification process. And with ISO 9000, there's a lot of work or processes that you put in place. And that is one of the things that I experienced from that is, wow, some of this just felt like bureaucratic overhead in terms of delivering that. And so I've definitely felt the pain of having the process in place. So let's go ahead and end that poll, and we're going to share these results with you. And almost 50% necessary but painful. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe what we want to do here is talk a little bit about why that might be painful. Bureaucratic overhead, 24%. Something to work around. All right. 6% of you respond to that. And only just a little less than 25% responded, it's a helpful decision framework. And so that really sets us up nicely in terms of what we want to be able to
Aren't too many
talk
people see
about.
it as helpful.
Yeah.
Our group does not like process.
Yep, that's exactly right. I think all of us can feel that at some time. And so, one of the things I love to say in my class is you have to slow down to speed up. And that slowing down means that we really truly think about and understand and discover what our customers really value, what's important to them, using frameworks like jobs to be done and out desired outcomes and identifying what their problems are. That's the important upfront discovery work that we need to do. Or discovery can be about what's the best way to implement this particular capability in our product, and being able to do some discovery around that. Because remember, what we talked about is without the discovery, with the focus only on output, we end up delivering things, but it's not always the right things. Maybe it's things that have very little value associated to it. And so if I take the time, I slow down a little bit, I do that discovery work, it doesn't speed up the quantity of work that I deliver, but what it will do is it's going to speed up the value of what I deliver. It's going to speed up the impact that I'm making for my customers and for our organization. And so this brings me to a quote that I really love is, or it was kind of a question that I asked one time. And this goes back to my example of the ISO 9000. But what I realized at that point in time was, is the process serving us or are we serving the process? And the clarity that came to my mind is when we are serving the process and the process is not serving us, then it is definitely doing those things that you talked about in terms of being bureaucratic, painful, something that we feel like that we want to work around. So think about, and this is where, I really want to think about process being a tool that helps us make better decisions and be able to deliver value faster. And so the right amount of process is going to help us reduce that risk. It's going to create those learning loops where we can better learn and make sure that we're making the decision. It clarifies the decisions that we're making and who has those decisions right. And so overall, the goal of process is not to slow us down, to frustrate us, to make more work of us, but it is really about helping us be more effective in the work that we are doing. So let's talk about, good processes, and I'm going to focus here more on the right side first. But when we think about good processes, we want to focus on outcomes. We may want to make sure that the process that we are developing empowers discovery, that is adding value to what we do and not all about control. Now, I'm not going to deny there might be a little bit of control that has to go into a process because we as product managers, as much as we want to say we have carte blanche rights to do anything that we want to, we don't. We have to do things within the context of the business, within the budgets that are available, et cetera. So yes, there's a little bit of control that needs to be in there. We want to make sure that we have flexibility to respond to market changes. And so when I start thinking about lightweight mechanisms that we can implement to help support process, some of the things that I find, or that are, I don't want to say support process, but that are valuable part of process. One is product strategy. And I will tell you, and I've seen this in several clients that I've worked with here even recently, is when I try to identify what the product strategy is, I get a roadmap that is a list of features that says, here is what we're going to deliver. And that is not a strategy. So strategy creates clarity, which helps us then identify our priorities to deliver against that strategy and not just a wish list of everything that we want to be working on. We want to be outcome driven and be thinking about the outcome hypotheses and framing things like if we believe that if we do this, this is the outcome that we're going to achieve, and not just move ahead on it, but actually do some of these tiny acts of discovery that needs to be done. And I think one of the things I want to emphasize on this tiny acts of discovery and why I think discovery is often avoided or feared in an organization is that somebody looks at it and says, you want to do discovery, you're going to spend several months working on discovery. But let's break that down. If we can break that down into smaller outcome driven hypotheses, we should be able to go and focus on acts of discovery that can take, hours to complete. Or, to me at a maximum, a few days to be able to complete. So we want to look at that in a way that it's not something that is a burdensome, long activity to do. We want to make discovery something that's a dynamic thing that we do on a regular basis. We can do it quickly. And it's all about then helping us reduce our key uncertainties that we have.
And
Let's make sure. Go
a
ahead.
lot comes from understanding. I mean, Tom, a lot comes from understanding what assumptions are you making and how do you challenge and make
Exactly.
and validate
Yes.
some of those assumptions.
Exactly. Yep. And I think that's the part that we don't do enough of. We want to be data driven. And so often in organizations, especially when we're output driven, it's opinion driven. It's not data driven. And so the more that we can be strategy focused, thinking about potential outcomes we want to achieve, doing tiny acts of discovery with experimentation and collecting data, we're going to put ourselves in a position to be, more dynamic in terms of, or better data driven in terms of our decisions. Sorry. The last couple of things is we want to create clarity around how we work together. One of those tools is a team working agreement. Now, that team working agreement can include decision rights within it. But if we think about defining how a team is going to work together, if you think about product development, one of the things that I really emphasize with organizations is to have a core team. And so, who's that core team? Who's that small group of 5 to 7 people that are making the day to day decisions, and have a team working agreement between you? And part of that can include that clear decision rights. But the final thing, and this is one of the things that we really emphasize as we work with product managers, is that ability and feeling empowered to say no. But we can only say no, or we're more mainly empowered to say no if we're doing these things that are listed up above, having that strategy, doing those acts of discovery, being data driven. Those are the things that empower us to be able to say no. Well, if you're looking for some lightweight process, we definitely highly recommend the Productside Blueprint. And so, the goal of that is to give us practices that are best practices to help guide the discovery work. So, what we have under discover before we start getting into the creating or the building of the product. And so that's, this really can be as lightweight as you need it to be. If you want to make it heavyweight, you're able to do that. In some industries, it does need to be a little more heavyweight. But it really is a lightweight approach of thinking about how do we identify what we're going to build? How do we make sure it's the right thing to build? How do we build it? And then how do we make sure as we launch it into the market, it is driving to and achieving the targeted outcomes that we wanted it to be able to achieve? So, what do we have to do here? Well, we have to re-anchor the teams on outcomes. So, we have to start off, one is getting our senior leadership team to start reframing things in terms of business value and customer value, and less in terms of the output focus. We, as product managers, need to start taking our roadmaps and moving them more into a strategic focus and outcome driven focus, and using that as the framework for how we start defining what we're going to build and what we're going to deliver. And then make sure that we are doing those practices that we talked about of doing the discovery, experimentation, and having good data driven evidence to help drive the decisions that we need to make in an organization. So that's what that, first step, and think about how do we re-anchor ourselves toward outcomes. Well, let's talk about making that transition. So some of this might be a little bit repetitive, but I want to really emphasize these points again. But we want to start re-anchoring, or re-anchor that work on business and customer goals. What's important for the business to achieve? What is it our customers are trying to do? What are their jobs to be done? What are their desired outcomes? Make sure we implement a required discovery cadence. So set the expectation from a process perspective that there is going to be discovery work done. That discovery work can be done either before we move into any development at all. So there might be some that we need to, depending upon our products, but also recognize that that discovery work and that discovery cadence can occur in parallel with our product development. So in some industries, especially software, we are very much thinking about discovery being done in parallel with our product development. Now, this third point goes back to what you talked about, Kenny, is that important of identifying those unknowns or identifying those risks and prioritizing those, because those are the points on which we need to do discovery. And I found for myself as a product manager that when I just looked at, here's what we want to deliver, and I looked at it from a big picture, I was never completely clear in terms of what kind of research should I do. But then once I was started to identify and break it down into where those unknowns were, where do we think the risks were, that starts to set up clarity around what those tiny acts of discovery need to be. Make sure we have well-defined metrics. And these are not just success metrics for your product, but also health metrics. Those are things that are going to give you indicators of are we progressing and are we maintaining our product to meet the expectation of our customers. And finally, be data driven. And if you have products right now that don't collect the data that you need to have or you don't have access to it, be thinking about how do we do a better job of making our products create the data that is going to help guide us in terms of making better decisions. And this, yes, that's important for the software world, but in the world of physical devices, both Kenny and I are seeing this where many physical devices are now being enabled with digital technologies, and that enabling of digital technologies is going to be able to even support you even more in terms of being data driven.
Yeah, and one of the things I see, Tom, is teams tend to sort of turn they do a good job on like 0 to 1 when we're first defining the product to doing discovery, and then once they deliver the thing, they stop thinking about it. Right, they're on to the next
Mhm.
one. It's like, no, you need to make sure the one that you have out in the marketplace, you're continuing to do discovery on the success and the validation. That's where those success metrics come in. Keep an eye on them, track
Yeah,
them, make sure
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
delivering on them. Just don't set
Yeah.
it and forget it.
You're going to have me go back here to our blueprint because here's the part that I see often that happens with us as product managers is, well, I'm going to do this in two steps. One is I find most product managers are spending most of our time right here. And we don't do much up here in discover. We do nothing around deliver. But let's say that we even have good practice around discovery and that we're doing this discovery work. We, as product managers, often are at this point of where the product is launched. Now, let me move on to thinking what I'm going to do next to my product or what am I going to do next to my product line. And we absolutely, we aren't sitting there watching to see how the product is performing, both from its technical capabilities, to the business outcomes that we're desiring to achieve. So, yeah, that definitely creates that disconnect there. All right. So you may be asking, well, what can I do to, are there any tools out there that can help me be able to do that? And the answer is absolutely. We have our Productside Playbook, which is a set of, I think, about 27 different templates that cover all of these things that we've been talking about. And I'm going to highlight 5 of those. But the first one is an outcome and strategy guided discussion. And so, if you're a product leader, this is a great tool for you to use with your product managers to walk through and answer the questions around who are our target markets, who are the customers that we're serving, who are the key personas, what are they trying to achieve, what are their important outcomes, what are the outcomes of the business. That's a super tool for you to use to guide your product managers. Or if you're an individual product manager, this is a tool to go in and speak to your director, your VP, and to have that same conversation to say, I want to have really clarity in terms of what this strategy is and what are the goals of our organization. What is it we want to be able to do for our customers?
Yeah, if you're a
This
product manager that doesn't have the answer to some of those things on that strategy discussion, it's like trying to drive a boat without a rudder.
Exactly. Yeah. Or trying to navigate without a map or, a GPS or whatever. I got a destination I want to go to, but I have no idea what the destination is. This what is it? The Alice in Wonderland quote is which of these roads should I take?
Right.
And the Cheshire cat says, well, where do you want to go? Well, I don't think it much matters. Then it doesn't much matter which route you take.
That's
So we
right.
need to have that clear destination in place. The second one is the outcome tree. And this is a wonderful way for us to take what we've learned from the strategy discussion as we've had customer conversations to be able to say, here are the targeted business outcomes. Here are the customer outcomes, or what we call product outcomes. Now I can start thinking about how am I going to deliver on those? How am I going to measure that we're actually delivering that value? The framing the problem, another great tool, because what that does is that helps us make sure that as we're commuting to other stakeholders, we are succinctly stating the customer problem that we are addressing and the value that we are delivering to them. The fourth one is the outcome based roadmap. And so this is moving from here is a roadmap with a bunch of features listed and when we're going to deliver onto it, but really starting with thinking about what are the goals of the organization? What are the business goals for my product? Now, what are the key customer outcomes or product outcomes that I want to deliver that's going to deliver value to our customers? And what is the order in which I expect to be able to deliver it? And the final part of that, which helps us drive this discovery, is the template for thinking through the tiny acts of discovery. So it helps us define what we're trying to accomplish, what our uncertainties or risk are, being able to prioritize those, and then starting to identify hypotheses that we want to test and identifying ways that we want to be able to, validate those. And so that's all in our playbook. And we have a QR code there for our playbook. It is honestly, I have to say this is a bargain at $25. I don't want to sound like a salesperson here or an infomercial, but in reality, it is. $25 is a bargain to get all of these templates that are going to help you be more effective in your product management thinking. And finally, we have a bunch of other free resources. And so if you're interested in looking at our other free resources, take advantage of that. So and I think there are links in there. Yeah, there's a link in there for the full Productside playbook in the chat window there.
Yeah,
All
perfect.
right,
And
I'm going to
all right,
stop to breathe, and I'm going to let Kenny you
yeah.
run us through here the next few things.
Yeah, so while you're thinking up some questions to ask, we'll save a couple of minutes at the end for answering some questions. Here's some activities to keep you busy while you're doing that. One is we talked about this notion of the tensions and challenges, which is what drove the order and the process that we're working through here. But there was a report that drove it, the series that we built. And one of them was what our product management challenges are out there. You can uh, use this QR code, download the report, and see some of the challenges and that bubble up when we ask product managers what are some of the issues you face as a product manager. So go and download that report. And also the next one is we've
Yeah,
got some.
I'll talk to this
You can
because
talk to this one, Tom.
I am going to be there. I'm excited about this, but we are going to be doing a public class in London. So if you are located in, the European area, or even, anywhere somewhat closer to that, and that London is the best place for you to get to go through this training. I'd love to see you there because we had a cohort there last September and it was fantastic. We had some great interactions. They were really excited about what they learned, and I'm ready to go back and do that again.
So if you like what Tom's talking about, he'll talk even deeper at this session in
That's
London.
exactly right.
And then we also have some other webinars that are coming up I encourage you to spend another hour playing with. One is being run by our CEO, Rena Alexin, that I'll also help moderate in a couple of weeks, so 2 weeks from today, that talks about how you can go from being a product manager that takes direction to one that's truly a decision maker that participates in those sort of senior discussions and has impact on some of those outcomes that the business wants to have. So I encourage you to join up for that one to see how you can start to build your power, build your authority from a decision making perspective.
All right.
And then if you're not going to be in London or aren't over in that neck of the woods, there are lots of other training opportunities that we have for you, both virtual and in person. So if you're one that wants to be able to participate just from your um, the comfort of your computer. You can go take our virtual sessions, and it covers some are on AI and some of the new imperatives on product managers from the pressure of AI. Not one to use it as part of your role, but also how to embed it in some of your products, and then a deeper discussion that takes all of the pieces of the blueprint that Tom talked about earlier and gives you the skills and techniques to leverage across all of those. And as I said, there's opportunities for remote using your computer, or if you really want to do this in person and sit in a room together with all the trainees and the instructor, there are opportunities to do that in London and also one in Austin coming up in the
Yep.
spring.
Yep. The public class in Austin is one of my favorite to do. So I live here in Austin, so great to come to Austin anytime.
Yeah.
And that'll be actually May is usually like Chamber of Commerce weather. So let's hope it is.
Yeah. All right. So with that, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes or so to handle some questions, and hopefully we'll provide you some answers. So you can use your Q&A panel or the chat panel to ask some of those. There are some that we already have, and I will throw those up for us. We can stop sharing the slides, Tom, so people can see our face better. Uh, One of them is in government, we often deploy scalable multi-tenant platforms, but end users later say that the CRM doesn't match their language or their workflows. And after millions are spent and the system is live, what strategies actually work to recover some of the adoption around that?
Oh, brings that again. It was
So yeah, so that in government, that one of their tenants saying is that they have all these huge, scalable, multi-tenant platforms that don't necessarily match the language or the workflows of the folks that need to use them. They spent millions of dollars on these systems, but they don't
hmm
actually meet the needs of the people using them. So what do we do to try to drive adoption in some of these scenarios?
Well, so this is I'm gonna take a guess here that somebody sat down and wrote a specification, detailed specification that said, here's exactly how the CRM needs to be implemented within our organization. And that it was built according to that. And so I'm making some assumptions here, but I'm just doing this from my experience is that we didn't take the time to actually sit with the end users that are using the product to understand what their needs are. And so that gets back to that point of where I feel like you're heading to the spec. This is what you need to deliver. And we didn't actually get the validation around it, or we didn't get a priority in terms of what the users really want to be able to do and accomplish. So that's what it, without having the rest of the context, that's a lot of what that feels like to me.
Yeah, I think, Tom, it goes back to your jobs to be done webinars. Really understand when you're creating a tool or implementing a tool, either internal or organization, or actually delivering it to end customers, understand what they're trying to get done, right? What does success look like for those users? And make sure that the tool that you're creating or customizing or aligning or building aligns to those goals and those objectives and the jobs that the customer needs to get done. Because otherwise, they're not going to use it. They'll find something else that gets that job done for them.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. They'll go
So that
back and
was
do things in the way that they always did it before.
exactly, yeah. You can create whatever new things that are out there, but if it doesn't help someone get their job done faster, more effectively, or more efficiently, they're not going to use it. They're going to
Yep.
use whatever that was. There was another question that talks not specifically about we talked about in this webinar, but still is relevant, I think, is that one of the people said, I hear about this product manager and product owner relationship. What about this notion of the product delivery lead? What do we think about that?
The product delivery
Lead, the
lead.
person, yeah, the person who's in charge of product delivery.
Is that would that be the development lead? It's
I think it's a role called the product delivery lead.
oh, I'm gonna have to honestly say that other than me thinking about that being the person on the product development side who is responsible for leading the team to deliver that solution, I I don't have another.
I think it might be part of the person that makes sure that the organization is responsible for delivering what's needed to get done to get the product out there. And I think it becomes a stakeholder that we work with and an asset that can help us as a product manager or as a product owner
Hmm.
to make sure that they become that key sort of, traffic cop, if you will, that help us reach out and make sure that all the risks and all those things that could go wrong when the product's out
Got
there
it. Okay.
are
Yep.
answered, right? And so a great person to work with and talk to and understand from all perspectives as a way to get to help us, particularly in that create phase, get things done. So
Okay.
don't be
And
afraid of
the
them.
chat
Don't.
says you were correct on that. So good job, Kenny.
I've heard of that before. All right. Any other questions coming in? I'm having a hard somehow Zoom is freezing for me, so I don't get to see the questions. I don't know why. I can see the chat, but I can't see the questions. Oh, here's one. I'm seeing ones jump in at me. Um, so one question, if a product organization feels chaotic right now, where should the leader start without trying to fix everything all at once?
Yeah, got it. The I think it goes back to some of those points that we talked about earlier. Is really focusing initially on reframing the conversation. So, from a leadership perspective, starting to reframe the conversation around the business value that needs to be delivered, what is the customer value that needs to be delivered, and helping prioritize that because I think that's where it has to come from. If I'm a product manager and I'm trying to push up, hey, we need to be outcome driven, we need to be outcome driven, but my leadership team is still leaning toward the focus on here's what you the output you have to deliver, then you're not going to make progress on that. I think the second thing then is try not to um, is don't try to roll this out as you make these transitions. Don't try to roll everything out to the whole organization. And so do some piloting. So take some of these practices that we talked about, work with a pilot team to test those out, to find out where you're doing things well, where things aren't working so well, and then make a correction from that. So, but it has to start with that leadership narrative. That's the starting point.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think the key piece is that template that you talked about, Tom, that outcome discussion to have.
Yeah.
As a product leader, have it two ways. One is go do that discovery with some of your executives and what we call the hippos, the highest paid person in the room, to understand from an executive perspective what's important for the organization, and then work with your product managers to make sure that they understand those outcomes that drive the business value, and where their product can participate in helping those outcomes happen.
All
All right,
right.
with that, we've hit the top of the hour, and I want to thank everybody for their attention. I want to thank you, Tom, for a captivating discussion and an interesting discussion. We hope everybody found this a hugely valuable webinar. As I noted at the beginning, you will all get an email, everybody that attended, with a way to review this session if you so do, or I encourage you, share it with others in your organization. We really think the more exposure we have, the more value we add, the better we are for helping product managers be successful. So for that, have a great day and enjoy, and we will catch you in 2 weeks with our next webinar.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, bye.